the Tamil and Japanese. Many scholars and people are unaware of the fact that the Japanese and the Dravidian speaking people of India share many characteristics. In fact, over the years, many researchers have spent a considerable amount of time writing about the connections between the Japanese and the Dravidians. One of the leading Dravidian groups is the Tamil people. The Tamil people live in South India. The Tamil people also expanded along with the Mandi speaking people that are present in West Africa across Central Asia into China and thence to the islands. One of the leading researchers that has done research relating to the Tamil Japanese connection is Professor Susumu Onu. Professor Susumu Onu is a distinguished scholar of Japanese linguistics. He's known for his phenomenal research linking the origins of Japanese with the Tamil speaking people of India. Professor Uno was born in 1999 in Tokyo. He has studied the early history of the Japanese language, or Kokugo Gaku. He graduated from the University of Tokyo in 1943, where he studied under Shinichi Hashimoto. He is a professor emeritus of Gakushuin University. Dr. Ono has really been very interested in the relationship between Dravidian and the Tamil people. Dr. Uno believes that the first contact between the Japanese and the Dravidian speaking people may have occurred as early as Jomon times. He believes that during the early Jomon period, the Japanese language was basically, in a sense, an Austronesian language or a Papuan language. During Jomon times, Omo believes that some Proto-Tamil speakers entered Japan. These Dravidians, he believes, took agriculture to Japan much later. One of the most important research of Dr. Ono took place during the 1970s. As a result of his research, we discover that he felt that the Tamil or Dravidians had a very important role to play in in Japan. He believes, in a sense, basically that that the most important relationship between the Japanese and the Dravidians is the period during the Yayoi period of Japan. He believes, in a sense, that through his research, he was able to discover that the Yayoi burials of Japan correspond to the megalithic burials and of South India. Okay. In the Encyclopedia of Languages and Linguistics, they refer to the Tamil Japanese studies in the following words. His search for the roots of Japanese language started in 1957. Dr. Uno compared Japanese with Korean, Ainu, and Austronesian languages. Unable to establish any kind of genetic relationship between them, he turned to a branch of Dravidian languages. Encouraged by Professors Imanol and Karthindar Rahman, Ono pursued his Japanese Tamil hypothesis, in spite of weathering criticism by some Japanese scholars. Commenting on his research, Dr. Ziva Lebel in 1990 said, the similarities between Japanese and Dravidian cannot be regarded as mere freakish coincidences, and may indeed reflect a very deep genetic kinship. Dr. Ono's studies are trying to prove his kinship. Another important research in relation to the Japanese Tamil or Dravidian connection is Professor Dr. Winters of the Uthman Danfodio Institute in Chicago. Dr. Winters has been working on relationships between the Japanese and Dravidian language for years now. In the Dravidian Encyclopedia, Dr. Winters wrote, many of the dietary laws and food customs of Japan are strikingly similar to the Indian food customs. Among the ancient Japanese, meat of animals, fishes, and birds were included in the diet. But the flesh of ox, horse, dog, monkey, and fowl was prohibited. As in India, there is a harvest festival. Rice field rituals celebrate the beginning of the year by the agriculturalists in Japan. As in India, the Japanese also considered untouchability to be a hereditary trait. Japan established and continued a system of hereditary status and procedures for declaring one as an outcast. In Japan, the outcast is referred to as ita. meaning very dirty. They were known as Burakumin, meaning people of a special village, as the Harijans or untouchables in India. Like in India, particularly in South India, the Burukauminis were isolated from other castes and prohibited from the religious rites and rituals observed by the higher caste. They have to prostrate themselves before higher caste people. Untouchables and other castes eating together in the public is frowned upon. The traditions and customs of the Japanese closely resemble some of the Dravidian practices. So as you can see, there's a lot of research that we have related to the Japanese and the Tamil. Dr. Winters and Professor Ono both believe, in a sense, that the most important relationship between the Japanese and the Dravidian speakers probably occurred during Yayoi times. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Proto-Dravidian people were found in ancient Japan. Walter A. Fairservice in The Roots of Ancient India has found that the Indian type butt axes of Bragamagiri, the South Indian type of flange edges, and skeletal remains have been found in Japan. Southeast Assam burial jars are related to the late Jomon and early Yayoi jar burials in Kyushu, Japan. This suggests that Africans or Dravidic people had contact with Japan by late Jomon times. Moreover, since the Proto-Japanese are believed to have come from Southeast Asia and southern China, areas which have long been occupied by Proto-Dravidian groups such as the Yuek or Yashas, the Kosars, the Kambodjas, make it clear that early Cushitic people may have arrived in Japan at various times in the past. Moreover, it's interesting to note that up until very recently, the Japanese states were ruled by queens, such as Himiko of Yamatai Koku. The largest state in ancient Japan was Wa. Queens also ruled in ancient Kush. The anthropological data, especially comparative skeletal studies, show that changes have taken place between ancient and modern Japanese. In the 1960s, Professor Kanizeki Takio of Kyushu University discovered that there were differences between the skeletal remains of Yayoi people found in Yamaguchi Prefecture and northern Kyushu on the one hand, and peoples from the earlier period. It appears that Jomon man was shorter than the Yayoi group. This led Professor Kanizeki to hypothesize that taller people entered Japan during Yayoi times. Even though there are differences between skeletons from Jomon and Yayoi times, it is clear that the bones of the Jomon people do not resemble Ainu skeletons. The Ainu are another ancient people in Japan. These Ainu show some very interesting physical traits. Some appear to look as though they are Africans, others appear to be Europeans, others Japanese. But we are sure that the Ainu people are not the people in the sense who founded Jomon and Yayoi culture. The modern Japanese are therefore a product result of mixing of Jomon and Yayoi people in ancient times. It is interesting to note that during the middle and late Jomon times, the Japanese had dental morphology similar to India and African teeth, whereas the North Asian cynodutes appear in Yayoi times. Dr. Furuhata Tanimoto, an anatomist, found that the blood type of Kyushu Japanese is similar to the people who live in China's Hunan province, which coincides with the southern side of the Yangtze River Basin. This is interesting because this area in ancient times was a stronghold for both the Yuek or Dravidian-speaking people and the Grido people who lived in South China, along with some oceanic groups. The recent Chinese people, the Han people, they only came to China after about 1000 BC. As a result, it took them a considerable amount of time to move from North China into South China where the blacks lived. It is very interesting to note that the Japanese language and many aspects of its culture relate back to the Dravidians. In fact, the entire farming community of Japan, according to Dr. Onu, was invented by Dravidian-speaking people. For example, in Japanese, the word ine means rice plant. This corresponds to nil in Tamil. The word fataki means plowed field in Japanese. This corresponds to Tamil patukar. The word ripe in Japanese is uru. The word ripe in Tamil is uru. So as you can see, there's a close relationship between Japanese and Tamil. Much of the research that you can find on blacks in Asia has been done by Dr. Clyde Winters. Check out his book.